Welcome to the SARE Ladies podcast, where our mission is to get more people that look like us participating in the real estate industry.
Whether you're a seasoned real estate pro or just starting out, there's something for everyone here.
I'm Anita Wong.
And I'm Tiffany Lee.
We invite experts to not just talk about real estate, but also about our unique identity as Asian women and the cultural values that shape who we are as investors.
Now let's get on with the show.
Hey Pod Squatters, welcome back to another episode of the SARE Ladies podcast. I am Anita Wong, and whether you're new or a returning listener, I'm so glad you are joining us. If you have been with us before, you may know that I have been off the grid for a few weeks because I have been embracing my most challenging role to date, which is being a new mom, because this March I gave birth to my first child, a daughter. And so this Mother's Day, which is this week, as of the podcast launch, this is my first Mother's Day. And I could not think of a better way to celebrate coming back from mat leave than to bring some badass mother investors with me. And I will say that these ladies here were my saving grace during my pregnancy, all of this, when I was kind of curled up in a corner and just wondering where my investment journey would be. I had to really rely on my girlfriends, and especially the ones that had shared real estate dreams or shared career dreams, because I felt like, as much as I love my husband and love that he's been a great partner, but just to be frank, he just couldn't answer all of the questions for me, right? It's like when you're going through pregnancy, you're kind of just going into this journey where your body is just changing from day to day, and you're I don't know, I had a lot of existential thoughts about like where do I stand now in this new phase of my career and my life. And so we're just going to talk about all of that, because I feel like I got a lot of questions and a lot of comments from others from SARE Ladies who maybe just are journeying into motherhood. Maybe they're just recently married or they're really young and they want to start investment careers, but they're thinking about motherhood too. And so I just kind of want to, answer some of those questions. And then we also have a lot of, late stage, like they've been mothers for a very long time. They don't have, real estate investment careers, but they want to, but they're kind of scared and intimidated because they want to, they want to be there for their kids, but then they're also just intimidated by a lot of just the journey itself, and also just managing their like teenage or grown kids, right? So I think we'll also touch upon that a little bit as well. So I'd like to introduce my guests here today. If you have been on this podcast, then you know that these ladies have been here before, but Vivian Keller. Hi.
Hi.
Okay. And then Anita. Hi.
Hello.
Have you both. I'm just going to have you kind of do a quick intro about yourselves, about your like career journey, and then where you are in motherhood now. Maybe we'll start with Vivian.
Sure. I'm Vivian Yip. I started my career. Actually, when I graduated university, I had all intentions to becoming a teacher. But during one summer, I took a job at a small manufacturing company, and I got my first taste of business and decided that I really love business because I'm just a very curious person. I love the way the world works and how things come together in a business, whether it's receiving or billing or human resources. That just seemed to be a better skill set for me. So then I ended up working in operations and developing my career in operations and supply chain, and end up getting my master's in it throughout my career. I was in officially in corporate for that space for over 20 years, with the last stint at Apple for almost 7 years, where I launched iPhones 10 through 12. So my background is pretty extensive in corporate, and I always loved it. But when I turned 43, I wanted to pursue a different life on my own terms after losing my hair from stress. And now I live a life that I control, and I have 2 teenagers. My son Weston is 13 and my daughter Isla is 12.
Yay. Okay, Anna.
Hi, I'm Anna Tan. I started real estate in 2011. So it was actually a gift from my parents, our first home, which we decided to turn into a single family rental property. But I started off being a graphic designer. I decided I did not like that career choice. Went back to school to do engineering, and I'm actually currently a engineer at a major oil company out here in West Texas. So I have a W-2. I have 3 kids, which span 6 months. So still pretty new. And then also almost a 7-year-old with 3 kids. And so I manage 3 kids, a W-2, and our real estate portfolio in commercial real estate and single families residential.
Awesome. So we kind of run the gamut here, but I would say I'm for sure the newest mom here with 1 kid. But I kind of want to hear about like where, when you guys were starting careers, like where were you in motherhood at that time? And like, how did it start for you? Vivian.
So I was already married at 29 and I had my first baby at 30. And neither one of our children were planned. If you know anything about James and I, we like to have fun and party, and one thing led to another, and boom, I'm pregnant. So we always talked about having a family, but we never were mature enough to actively plan a family. And it was the best blessing for us to just surprise you're pregnant. So, of course, being a career driven woman, I was worried. But one thing that I had in my back pocket is that my mother was the breadwinner in my household. So my mother came from an executive banking career, which basically was a testament to that this can be done. You know, so I don't think it ever really occurred to me that it would be difficult for me to have a career at the same time. But the one thing that did cross my mind was like, how am I going to travel the world? Because I love traveling. I've been to 35 countries. And how am I going to continue my adventures if I have children? So that was probably more of a bottleneck or an obstacle for me than actually growing my career, because I think growing my career wasn't going to be an issue at all.
Love that. How about you, Anna?
So I was 33 when I had my first child, and I think our first residential property real estate, I was probably 27 or 26 at the time. So I didn't have any kids at the moment or at that time, but I also didn't have that much capital either to deploy. So Vivian, you had talked about in a different conversation, do you have time or do you have money? And at that time we had a lot of time. And so we spent a lot of things doing DIY and other things. But now in our point of lives, we have more capital. And so we can, our focus or what we lack of is time. So we're willing to pay more for the things that we want and spend it there. But I think for those that are maybe more reserved on when do I start the real estate journey, I think when it comes to kids, when you're a first time parent, you don't know anything about kids. Like you may hear this and that, you may read blogs and stuff, but until you actually have your first one, I mean, you're just going, you're learning as you go, you figure it out, you take advice from people you don't want to take from, like you just get everything. And somehow these kids grow and they survive and they're walking humans and it's amazing. And if you apply the same principles of real estate, it's the same thing. Like once you get your first one, you just start going and you learn and you grow and you'll be surprised at how far the real estate stuff will take you. So I think that's kind of part of it. It's two different aspects in life, but once you start, man, it's amazing.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like one thing that I learned about myself in pregnancy was like that I really had to stick to my own truth. It's like there is a lot of advice out there, a lot of people that had, great pregnancy experiences, bad pregnancy experiences, but you are the only one that knows your body in that specific moment, right? And, and I guess I just wanted to hear about like what kind of lessons you learned during your pregnancy journeys too, because I felt like I was I don't know, kind of being judged at all ends. It's just like everyone had some kind of opinion. And I think it was like there's certainly a lot of opinions of like, you need to slow down. You cannot be going this fast. Like your life, there's a lot of like, your life is now over because you have kids, which was not something that my husband was receiving, like not a message that he was receiving at all, but I was receiving for sure. They're like, you should not be traveling as much, right? You shouldn't be, like you're going to be staying at home and things like that. So I think at that time I was really intimidated by like, I was in full pursuit of, doing my first syndication. And, there's a lot of upfront work with that, right? To stabilize that property. But I was like, how am I going to do that? With towing like a newborn on these property inspections or something like that. And so I think I had a conversation with you, Vivian, because I had this thought during the Oahu Women's Summit, and of like dealing with that slowing down. Did you guys ever deal with that?
So I'm like you, Anita. I'm a go, go, go kind of person. And I think really the only time that I really slowed down was in the first 6 weeks of pregnancy because my parents were there. And like you, I had people telling me what to do all the time and what was right, what was wrong, especially my parents. So number one, I want to know, did you have black vinegar soup?
I did. It was the worst.
What? I actually really like it.
People are so like, I was like, oh,
Like I can smell it right now, and I'm like smelling it in my head, and I'm drooling.
I think I burned a hole in my stomach because I was just how strong it is. It's just like, it's so acidic. I was like, woo,
I love the taste, especially the eggs. But second of all, my mother, being a career woman, was always in my head, telling me what to do, how to do this, how to change diapers, how to bathe the baby, blah blah blah. But she was looking out for me with the best intentions because I know that she loves me. She's not there to annoy me. She's there to help me. And I had a conversation with my brother, and he's like, you just have to believe that she's just there with good intentions and not trying to harm you. It's all love for you. So she helped me slow down, but I had to keep going. I was the breadwinner in the family, and I didn't really have a choice. Some days I regret it. I mean, I do regret some of it because I wanted to have more of those special moments with my infant babies, but those times passed so fast because I was always on the go. So if I had to go back, I wish that I didn't have so many things on my mind. I wish I could have enjoyed breastfeeding more instead of enjoying breastfeeding like you see in the movies and whatnot. I always felt like, okay, when are they going to be done so I can get moving and do my other stuff, right? That is something that I constantly dealt with, not only breastfeeding my first child, but my second child as well, because I was always anxious, like, okay, when are you going to be done so I can move on? So if you have the chance to slow down, I would take advantage of that because it does really go by quickly.
I literally feel this 8 times a day.
Yeah.
I'm like always just future focused.
Yeah.
Like, when is this done? When is maternity over? Like, when is maternity leave over? When can I have adult conversations back? When can I have alcohol again? When can I have like raw fish again?
Right.
I'm constantly feeling that I'm like trying to, I don't know, because I think I'm anxious, about what is next, right? When everyone's just, I mean, I know that I need to be present, but
yeah. But it's probably a cultural thing too. Is like, you got to be productive, right?
Yes.
Like you always have to be productive. So I was, instead of just pumping milk, I bought one of those bras that I could stick the tubes in there, and that way I could multitask and do emails and work at the same time while, milk is coming out of my boobs.
Yeah. And, I had a conversation with Jen, who is, another SARE lady. And then she was, with her first, she was just like, I always felt like I had this pressure of bouncing back, right? Always like getting back into my career at full force, like as if pregnancy has never happened, or getting back into my body pre-pregnancy as if my body never went through something so big, right? And I was like, that's kind of also what I felt like. I was like hurrying to get to the gym to like, get back into my body and things like that. And I still feel that way. I don't know.
I think that's normal because your first time mom, to me, I think going from 0 to 1 is probably the most difficult transition because you've never been a parent before. Your body's never gone through that drastic of a change and the things associated with it. And I think that's kind of the dichotomy of motherhood. Is it enjoy the moment, enjoy the family? We need to be career leaders. And then there's all these expectations that that you feel from society, and probably it's reflective of yourself. And I think having, going through the third, I remember with my first, I was like, going hard until, I had the baby. It was like work, work, work. And then, I need to go to the hospital now, and you're still kind of checking emails maybe. And then when you have the baby, you feel like you have to start working again. I think that's probably more of a US cultural thing. I think if you look at the life expectancy of maybe European countries or certain Asian countries, the US is like 7 or 8 years below the average. Like the average is 7 or 8 years below. I think it's just culturally we just feel like we have to provide and work and hustle, right? It's crazy, but with the third, I'm really embracing the being present. Like, oh, she woke up at 2 a.m. I'm going to embrace that and love it. And I think it's more because I feel like this is probably my last baby, and I'm I think with experience, just realizing is work pushing that hard. Why am I pushing hard if I am not able to enjoy the little moments with the baby? So it is a struggle, I think, for your first baby, but if you decide to have more, I think you'll have a change of perspective.
I think I think Anna's entering the IDGAF phase of her life.
I I am because so I'm still on maternity leave, and I'm taking 10 months off, and I'm just enjoying life. My baby's in daycare. Like, she's not home with me because I wanted to give myself the time to just do whatever the fuck I want.
Good for you.
And it's weird. Like, it feels very it's different, right? Like, that's not normal here. That's not common. But I just want to be able to just get my shit back together, get my life in order, get a pedicure, like facial. So that's kind of where I am. But Vivian, you're absolutely right.
I want to talk about that for a second because I want to talk about mom guilt, or like I guess like the aha moment that you had to start like thinking about yourself and doing things for yourself. Like, I mean, like what was that aha moment for you, Anna? And then like where did it kind of just break?
I mean, I still have mom guilt. Like, I'm trying to decide in this moment, like, do I continue pumping and breastfeeding her, or do I kind of start weaning off and cut it, and it's time for you to take formula. So I'm like literally still struggling with that because part of me feels guilty for no reason. It's just, I think it's more of just letting go something that we've kind of bonded over for the last 6 months or so. So it's always a struggle, but if you don't take care of yourself, no one else will. And sometimes you just got to put yourself first.
Not enough of us do that. I'm really proud of you. There's very few times in your life where you have that perfect balance of time and money. And being on maternity leave, that probably means you're getting, part of a paycheck, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now you have this time and money, and not enough people take advantage of that to really nurture themselves. So I think that's awesome that you're doing that.
Oh, thank you. Although I am spending a little bit more than it's coming in.
That's fine. You have the rest of your life to work, girl. Right? Just like,
hey, just do the girl math. Go buy the Chanel. Go buy the stuff, right? And they appraise in value. So go do some shopping of quality good stuff.
I can't tell you how cheap I felt. Like during my pregnancy, I was just like, no, I don't want to buy any like pregnancy clothes because I'm just going to stretch them out and it's going to get disgusting. And like, but I was like feeling myself just like wither away because I was wearing like 2 stretchy pants for like the entire week, And then once I had the delivery, and I was just like, my husband was just like, okay, what do you need to feel better at this time? I was just like, I just need new clothes. Like, I need to do my hair. And I can't tell you, it felt like, I feel like I was like rising from the grave. Like, I was like, it felt so good because I was just like so angry after delivery. I was like, that was the hardest shit I've ever done. Okay. And by the way, I have summited the highest mountain in Africa, and this is harder than that. Okay, I will tell you, and I think I shared this with Vivian too. I was just like, this is, like Vivian, you said that like having a natural birth was maybe one of the the biggest like the biggest achievements that you've ever had. Same,
100%.
Yeah, that shit was hard, and I learned so much about pain and like and sticking to wanting natural birth was also like was hard, not just like sticking to it like mentally. I feel like I was like people were pushing me to get the epidural during the in the hospital, and I get where the hospital is coming from, but like I like there were moments where I was like up for 72 hours and people like, are you sure you don't want to have an epidural? And I'm like, you give me the epidural, I will like I will throw shit, like do not ask me that question again. And so I feel like there was a lot of it like sticking to your guns at your like your weakest moments. I think there was that, and I also learned a lot about pain too, right? It's like going through one of those contractions like for that many hours, like you learn a little bit about how to get through pain. And every contraction is like, do I believe in myself to do this a little bit longer, a little bit further to get this thing done? What about you, Vivian?
I did Lamaze classes with my first child, but I didn't make it through the natural birth because he came 6 weeks early and I was on Pitocin and just a whole bunch of complications. But with my second, I did I took yoga, meditation, breathing exercises for labor on YouTube, and I really learned how to transcend my mind somewhere else. Not that it didn't hurt, it definitely hurt, but I felt like it was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, but the end result was so worth it that it almost canceled it. I don't know how to explain it. Like when I think back to it, it's just there's never in my life that I'll ever have that experience again.
Do you kind of use it now? I mean, like do you use it now? I guess like now that you've been out of it for a little bit, like, oh, I went through delivery. There's nothing as hard as that,
Oh yeah, no. As soon as I went through birthing my daughter, I was like, I can fucking do anything now.
Hell yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Anna.
It's interesting to hear your stories because I feel like once you birth a child, there's a fire that lights behind you, right? Like I know, Anita, you mentioned earlier that you had all these fears, you may not come back, blah blah blah. But I think once you have a kid, I think you understand or you realize why you're doing your certain things. Like you feel it, you see it, like this is why I'm busting my butt. This is why I'm, getting up at 5 or 6 to do XYZ, and it's the reason why you do things. And so once you've had this child, it just kind of elevates you on, you have more desire to hustle or achieve better or do better. Or maybe you just, I don't give a fuck about things and, enjoy life better. Like whatever it is, it's just amplified. And so I have 3 kids. My first one, she was a hospital birth. I had the epidural, but they didn't work, and because I had some other issues. And so talk about not having plan A and things kind of going awry. She essentially was a natural birth. And then I had a C-section with my second, and the third one was a natural birth at a birth center. And Vivian, to your point with your second, it was just such a different experience. And it was, I mean, the experience itself was great. I think because of the post, after birth, it was just so warm and so like on your own terms. And I don't know, it was just such a better experience, if you kind of stick to hopefully your plans and things work out. I don't know. I just, at the birth center, I think I had contractions at 3. The baby came out around 7:30 and I was home at 11 that same night. Like it was wild.
Wow.
And completely different with my first. Like I think with my first, I had all these fears because, oh, the echo didn't work. Like, what do we do? And there's kind of all these things that happen. But with the third, it was just, oh, do we want to go for a fourth now? Like, I'm ready.
God. That's how they get you. But I love that, right? It's sort of like you kind of learn in the moment that like plans go awry and then you can deal with the thing, and it kind of like teaches you on other things, right? You like, you don't know, like your property like catches fire, it's like that's not what you plan on. But man, like if like I, whatever it is, like I can deal with the change, right? Because I've dealt with change before. And so I love that too. And I think for me, it was like the pain part. It was just like, I realized that I could deal with a lot more pain than I mentally thought that I would be able to. It was like, people tell you, they're like, if you're not like screaming like a banshee, like you're not like in your animal instincts, you are not there yet, And I'm like, am I there yet? Am I dying yet? And I was like, and so I was like, every time I got closer, I was like, oh my God, like I didn't know that I could deal with this kind of pain. And every step that you take further, I was like, I could deal with a lot more pain than I really thought I could. And so right now, like nothing, I feel like impenetrable. Like nothing can be as painful as that.
Unstoppable. Yep.
And I honestly felt the same way when I was coming down from Kilimanjaro. You're just like, humans are not meant to be at this height of, in the planet, right? It's like, but once you come down, you finish the thing. Oh my gosh. Like honestly, nothing feels as intimidating. Not 100 units, not 500 units or whatever. Like these are all small achievements compared to that.
Yeah. And it's all yours.
Right.
And only yours, which I think is pretty awesome.
It is pretty awesome. Yeah. So what do you say to like new mom investors are intimidated by just all of this, right? Trying to balance out these desires. What do you say to like new moms that are trying to kind of have a career, trying to be mothers, that are kind of intimidated by the whole process, making assumptions about what their experience is going to be?
Anna, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. So, Anita, I don't know if you've gone through this yet, but think about the first time that your child has became severely ill. Fever, cough, runny nose, stuffy nose, whatever it is. Or even worse, I know there's other worse illnesses out there, but imagine that first time and how you reacted to it. How did you overcome it? Because, you'll find a way, you'll figure it out. Either you Google or you find a professional, you go to the pediatrician, like you'll find a way to figure out how to resolve it or how to push through or whatever it is. And you can apply that same mindset to real estate. You'll learn, you'll figure it out. And if you make a mistake, it's not nearly as costly as it would if you made a mistake with, your child, right? Like if you research, 5 hours to, how do you do something, right? Or how do you make a decision on something? You'll figure it out with real estate. There's so many resources out there that can help and aid in your decision making. And end of the day, at most, you lose money, and that's not end of the day not that as big of a deal. Like it may be a big of a deal right now, but in a big scheme of things, I think learning how to overcome those challenges is much more important. And so I would really encourage, if you are considering, just kind of jump in and kind of see what happens, because motherhood, you just jump in and, you know, look where you are now with your baby. So
Yes. Vivian?
I agree with you, Anna. All skills are transferable. I don't care what it is, but the skill you take is transferable into the next thing you do. And everything you do is a building block into something in your future, right? But the amount of effort and motivation that you have towards building that skill depends on why you're doing it, right? Simon Sinek says it starts with why, and that can't be more true, because if you don't know why you're investing in real estate, why do it? If you have to decide what it is that you want. Is it financial freedom? Okay, that's fine, but like, what does that actually mean? For me, it used to be as simple as like, I just don't want to work anymore. But then as I became a mother, I hated feeling guilty that I would have to call in sick because my child was sick, and that I would need to take care of them, take them to doctor's appointments, maybe dentist appointments, nurse them back to health. I hated that I felt guilty that I wasn't checking my emails, or my teammates weren't doing stuff. I wasn't doing things for my teammate. I was failing other people. I didn't like that I was denied permission to go on a trip to Hong Kong to go to my cousin's wedding. She's the last cousin in my family. And I couldn't go to her wedding because we were in product launch season. So then my why became different. It wasn't just about selfishly traveling the world. It's just like, I don't want anybody to control my time anymore.
Mm.
Right? So when you start your journey, understand the reason why you're doing it. And the stronger that reason is, the more effort you'll put into what your goal is.
Yeah.
I want to extend on that. So I'm able to take as much maternity leave, or feel that I can take as much maternity leave, because we have our real estate business on the side, which we've built over time. It's not, overnight, but I don't feel that I have that pressure. I need to go back tomorrow, right? Like, a lot of my coworkers actually ask me, "Are you coming back at all?" I'm like, "Yeah, I think I like it enough. I'll come back." But I think having that optionality to, do I do A or B, or A and B, A, B, C? That's really nice. And what you're doing is you're providing financial optionality, right? So maybe you have investments in stocks, maybe you have your W-2, maybe you have it in real estate, but now you're diversifying, and you're giving yourself and your family options in case one doesn't work out. And so I think that for me has been my why on continuing to improve our real estate portfolio.
Yeah, I totally echo that. I mean, I feel like if you have been building a real estate career, and kind of going through the whole, this is like when you're like your portfolio, or your work is really being tested. It's like, can you take the time off to do the thing that you want to do in the moment that you need it, and will that real estate portfolio support you in that time? Or like, do you feel like you have room to move, like you're not pressured by financial reasons to go back, but you're just going back because you personally want to, right? I think it's a test of real wealth. Like, this is what wealth is to me. Like, wealth is not owning billions. It's about having options. That is real wealth.
The
Right?
worst thing is feeling trapped.
Yes. And it's like, can I, like, if I have a sick family member, just quit and be like, and tomorrow I will survive? Like, that is wealth, right?
Yeah.
And so so I think that this is what you're building it all for, really. At least that's what I feel like I'm building it all for.
We're all entering this phase, not all, but a lot of us are entering this phase where our parents are getting older. My dad is 83, my mom is 77, and there's going to be a period of time where I might have to drop everything to go and take care of them. And they spend half their time in Canada, half their time in Hong Kong. But that moment can come at any point in time. And if I didn't have the real estate portfolio that I have today, I would have to be tied down to that job because I would rely on that income to continue paying the bills, and then I wouldn't have the last days of their lives. So if you position it that way, then you really think, oh my gosh, that is something. I only see my parents 2 or 3 times a year. If they're at the age that they're at now, it's not how many years they have left. It's how many times I have left with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's quantifiable, right? It's like how many more dinners you have with your kid, how many more dinners you have with your parents. It's quantifiable, and it's not that many, Yeah. And it's like, are you in a position where you can just, drop that and go decide to be with your family wherever they are? Right.
Right. And for those that if you don't want it enough, you're not going to work hard for it. Right. I wanted it so bad that every day after work, once I put my kids to bed, I would research real estate from like 8 o'clock at night till 2 o'clock in the morning, every night, analyzing stuff, put things on spreadsheets, looking at modeling scenarios. I did that for 4 months straight until we found our first flip. Once we were in our first flip, which by the way, we did after work and on the weekends, then we would find our second one and our third one. And we've done over 30 now, but it was, on those days when you're going to Home Depot for the fourth time on the same day, you think, why the hell am I doing this? But you're like, oh, because I never want to ask for another day off. Okay, let's go. Right? That momentum and that why continues kicking in every time. And it doesn't feel like pain. It just feels like part of the journey.
I think I also want to say, like, it can also be a trap, right? Real estate can also be a trap, right? Sometimes I'm like, how do people have so many units? I'm like, how does anyone have so much time? And they are spending more time on their real estate than what they're doing it for, right? And I was just like, I think that it can also suck you in, and the greed of it can kind of also suck you in, that it takes time away from the thing that you were doing it all for, like for your family or whatever. And it's inefficient, right? Because you have to count time and money together to really make a holistic life, right? So I think I'm like, I don't think I want that many units. It's not a point of pride for me, and I think it's actually a point of stupidity to have this many units, actually.
Yeah. I definitely think it's a balance, and where you are in life and what you're willing to give up or to work on, right? So is it time, money, or family? And it's kind of this trifecta, and I think it kind of moves depending on where you are. Maybe it's feeling that day or whatnot. And I would say probably in my life right now, it's more family focused. That's just kind of where I am. And but at one time it was very career or real estate focused, or maybe it's more money focused. So it's really dependent. And Vivian, when you're sharing your story about how you're looking at deals for, after your main job, I totally resonate with that. And I just remember working, you come home from work and you just put in the extra hours. And if you don't know what your why is, you're going to go crazy. You're not going to finish, climbing up to the top of that mountain. So really, what is your why? Why are you doing it? Maybe it's you have the elderly parents that are kind of coming. Maybe it's more flexibility. But keeping that in mind will help you push through those crazy hours. But real estate is really slow. Like you're not going to see your return, in the first month or the second month. It's really a long journey, and you have to be willing to commit to it and before you begin to see any results.
Yeah.
Before we kind of wrap up with the episode, what do you think that women need in order to kind of, what were the things you could not do without when you were beginning your motherhood journey?
I had a nanny.
Hell yeah.
We had a live-in nanny from Hong Kong for 5 years. And, my mom couldn't be there to be the grandparent that a lot of traditional women, elderly women fill that grandma role. She was not a pawpaw kind of mother. She was very career independent. Like she likes to travel. So instead of her physically being there, she actually helped to supplement a live-in nanny for me, which is a huge blessing because I would not have been able to pursue my career and pursue my master's degree if it wasn't for her. Right. And my marriage probably would have fallen apart because the first 5 years of marriage with children is the hardest.
Mm.
Right? Between balancing a career, household chores, trying to be a good wife, all those different things, it's hard. It's tiring. So, I'm really grateful to my mom for providing that financial support in that space and so that I could develop and work on myself. So that's really definitely one of the things that I needed.
Yeah, I think help is such a big part of it. And I moved to the South Bay, and more like suburban. I'm a city girl in general, and I moved to the South Bay, which is very suburban, to be closer to my parents. And I kind of held that resentment for a little while because I did not want to be back here whatsoever. But now that I'm in it, I'm just like, oh my God, thank God I have the help. And a lot of my girlfriends, they don't ask for help until, pretty late. I would say my cousin, third kid, now is getting an au pair. It's like a night and day kind of like, she didn't ask for it for first 2 pregnancies, but now that she is asking for things for herself, it's such a big game changer in the way that she is pursuing her career, can go back to work, think about herself, and like taking care of her newborns. She could be with her other 2 kids, so asking for help. That is true.
Outsource what you can, right? We live in this gig economy that makes it so easy. Like, just to put into perspective, when my son was born, Amazon Prime wasn't even a thing yet. So they had this like mom special where you can get Amazon Prime for the first year for free. And I was like, whoa, diapers at my doorstep in 5 days. That's amazing. Now you can get things in 2 hours, right? So as much as you can, leverage the gig economy, leverage being able to outsource. And if you're not using cleaning services every 2 weeks, maybe you're thinking it's so expensive. Well, cut down on the DoorDash, right? Maybe pre-make meals on Sundays, save on time and money, and then spend more money on cleaning. It's not about what you can afford, it's how you can afford it. And yeah, because you're never gonna have these times and moments again with your infants and babies.
Yeah, I certainly hear that. I mean, that's also a benefit of, I'm 35 and just had my first kid. And I was like, I don't know how people do this younger and have no money. It's like, formula. Oh my God, it's so expensive. It's like $15 a day for my infant daughter. Like, I was like, it's crazy. I didn't think it was this expensive. So
And then they don't eat all of it. So you're like, oh,
yeah. I spent so much time and effort. Yeah.
Time to bump rents.
Yeah, right. Anna, what about yourself?
So I would say for all 3 of my pregnancies, my mom has been super helpful. Especially with the first one, at least for me, I was very protective in receiving advice because I felt like I had to do everything my way and I had to figure it out on my own. But my mom is such a peaceful angel. Like, she just takes whatever criticism or makes the foods. She just cleans everything out. So she has been a gift, especially with the third one. She traveled here and she would just make all sorts of foods. Like, it was just amazing. But for the most part, we've had our children, and we didn't really have any family close by for most of the kids' lives, and so we outsource. We can outsource laundry, outsource cleaning. We're trying to figure out what other things we can outsource. So that has been a game changer for us.
I want to just touch base about your partnerships, about when you guys were first having kids, and like, what is your advice to keeping that, whether you're in a marriage or you're not married yet and you have a kid, what is your advice to kind of keeping your partnership intact, or your, just a kind of going through the trenches? What is one lesson that you want to impart on people going through that?
I would recommend having, I think kids are important, but So I would say in hierarchy of what's important is you, yourself, and I. And then the second person or second grouping is your marriage. And then the third is your kids. And I know that's kind of a backwards order, but if you're not healthy and happy, then no one's going to make you that way. Number two, if your marriage is fantastic and great, your kids will see that. They will see that and experience that culturally. And so I would recommend having maybe annual marriage meetings, having monthly date nights, kind of force it, right? Like don't make it about, oh, the baby's, doesn't take a bottle yet, or the baby, whatever, right? Like you can go for an hour or find a babysitter for an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is. If you make the effort, it's well worth your time. So I would say keep your partnership or marriage sparkly and fun, and do whatever you can to keep it alive.
I agree with all that. And also to train your spouse early.
With
Right.
animals or something, like have like 3 dogs.
Well, so men are less intuitive than women, right? And a lot of times women make the mistake of assuming that they know what you need. So if you set expectations or create processes or something in your space that says maybe like after every bottle, let's just rinse the bottles and put them on the dryer right away. That way they're not crusty or oily from the sink or whatever, right? Train those things early. And train train those things early. I had one more thing. Oh, yes. And then make sure you find time to grow independently. I'm entering my 15th, no, almost my 16th year of marriage now. And one of the things that I'm grateful for is that the entire time we've been married is I've been able to pursue my own personal passions along with building a business with James. So he's never been one to say, "Oh, you can't do that," or "You can't go out," or "You can't." I tell him I'm doing these things. I'm taking a course, or I'm taking my master's, or whatever it is, and I would do things to alleviate burden on his part. But it's really important for me to grow independently, and also because if I don't grow independently, I get very unhappy. So that's my way of finding happiness is learning new things and meeting new people and getting energy from other people. So I've always had that freedom.
Yeah, all of the things. I didn't think that I would be so something that surprised me. And me and my husband came into pregnancy with a pretty happy, like we were like 9 out of 10, like we feel really great about our marriage. And then when sort of pregnancy and delivery happened, I didn't think I was actually really angry. It was like, when you're like sitting there doing like pre-labor and you're watching your partner just sleep soundly while you've been up all night and just like having contractions, I want to fucking punch him in the face, like, and you collect so much of that pain and anger, and I'm like tallying into my head, just like, you owe me for this one, you owe me for this one, and that
you need a push present.
Yeah, I was like, if she comes out past 8 pounds, you're getting me a Birkin bag. I don't care.
Yeah. So translate that into the bottle cleaning thing, right? If you expect him to bottle clean and you haven't told him that's what you need, then it's going to transfer into resentment.
Right.
So train them early.
Men are not mind readers, and so like you have to tell them that's exactly what you need. And honestly, I had to vocalize, like I was angry from pain. I thought I could absorb the pain from the delivery and the rough months of pregnancy, but you kind of absorb it. Like it doesn't go anywhere. It's like energy is not deferred. So I was like collecting it, and I was like, I just need relief. Like my cup is really full right now. You need to take some of this on.
Yeah.
And this is really great practice before you get into toddlerhood.
Right.
Like the way that you describe, like how, sharing your emotions and teaching your spouse, how to do something really basic. And you're going to have to probably repeat it several times. Like this is great practice for you for, your 2-year-old whenever she gets there.
Yeah. And I feel like I'm learning too, is just that, we're both overwhelmed in our own ways. Like I think I was just like, well, you have a lot more sleep than I am. I'm up every 2-3 hours pumping. Like, how are you pissed off and annoyed? But you both sit in your own truth. It's like you are both overwhelmed in your own different capacities. And one is not more true than the other just because one has a different experience of it than the other. And I think I'm learning that now. And I'm like, okay, well, he can be really overwhelmed even though he had sporadically 8 hours of sleep that day, and yeah, that's something I'm also learning about my partnership. So, okay. Well, happy Mother's Day to you both. And thank you so much for celebrating with me. And I hope that you guys will have some fun. You guys have anything going on for Mother's Day at all, or no plans?
Not yet.
You're waiting for the surprise, the breakfast to bust through the door. Yeah. Anna, how about yourself?
No plans, but my girls already made a craft full of table full of crafts and art for Mother's Day, but I'm not supposed to know and look. But I can see it.
That's very
awesome.
Cute. Okay. Well, thank you so much. Love you both. And thank you for being on podcast. See you next time.
Happy Mother's Day. Bye.
Bye.
The following is an important legal disclosure regarding the content of the SARE Ladies podcast. Entertainment purposes only. The content provided in all episodes of the SARE Ladies podcast, including discussions, opinions, interviews, and any other type of content, is intended solely for entertainment purposes. It should not be considered professional, financial, legal, or any other type of advice. No professional advice. The hosts, guests, and producers of the SARE Ladies podcast are not professional advisors. The content provided should not be relied upon for making any personal, financial, or business decisions. We strongly encourage our listeners to seek advice from qualified professionals before making any decisions based on the content of this podcast. No liability. The creators, hosts, and producers of the SARE Ladies podcast shall not be liable for any errors or omissions in the content provided, nor for any actions taken by any listener based on the information provided in the podcast. Any reliance you place on such information is therefore strictly at your own risk. No endorsement of investments. While we may discuss a range of topics, including investments and financial strategies, such discussions are for illustrative and entertainment purposes only. The SARE Ladies podcast does not endorse or recommend any specific investments or financial products. Consult professionals. We strongly advise our listeners to consult with a qualified professional for advice tailored to their personal circumstances before making any investment or financial decisions. No association. There is no association between SARE Ladies and a guest speaker or professional. By listening to the SARE Ladies podcast, you acknowledge and agree to this disclaimer and understand that the content provided is not intended to replace professional advice.
Now on to the show. Thank you for tuning in to the SARE Ladies podcast hosted by Anita Wong and Tiffany Lee.
If you enjoyed our show, please leave us a review or follow SARE Ladies on Spotify and Instagram. And also click on our show notes to subscribe to our newsletters to stay on top of our news and upcoming events. Until next time, Pod Squatters.